The left is probably hoping the hubbub over the Mike Flynn guilty plea will drown out this story, but a group of congressmen is demanding that the FBI investigate alleged special treatment of Hillary Clinton during its investigation into her private email server. Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida sent a letter to FBI Director Christopher Wray asking the Bureau to explain its decision to investigate Clinton with a, quote, small team. What does that mean? The congressman joins us now. Congressman Gaetz, you've been all over this. People are saying, oh, you just don't understand when they say special investigation and small team, that's just routine kind of lingo. So you're making a big deal over nothing.
Well, Laura, we now have smoking gun evidence that Hillary Clinton got special treatment, and it's important to provide context. We've got Loretta Lynch on the tarmac with Bill Clinton. We've got Loretta Lynch telling James Comey to call this a matter and not an investigation. Then we've got James Comey sucking this up to headquarters and keeping the investigators in the Washington, D.C. office away from the Clinton investigation. And then he drafts the exoneration statement before even conducting the interview. In 6 days, the FBI Director, Christopher Wray, will be before the House Judiciary Committee, and we need answers because Hillary Clinton didn't deserve special treatment. She should have been treated like every American, and now we know she was not.
Do you think that when they say special treatment and the way they designated it, it was just, from what you can see with all the things you just laid out, it was just kind of soft pedaling it or shortcutting it, or we know the conclusion, let's just put some window dressing on it so it looks like it's official, but let's wrap this baby up as fast as possible. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, that's what the evidence suggests. And when you look at the recent documents released about the tarmac meeting between Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton, the FBI was more worried about spin control and public relations and punishing the person that released this information than they were about the improper conduct of the Attorney General of the United States. And so time and again, we see from the Obama era that they were determining the outcomes before actually conducting the investigation. That's not what the American people deserve, and that's why we're going to fight for a real investigation.
Congressman, weren't they also desperate to find out who leaked the Clinton meeting on the tarmac with Loretta Lynch?
Absolutely. Recently discovered emails show that the FBI was very concerned about who let the American people know that Loretta Lynch was meeting with Bill Clinton, but they weren't at all concerned about the fact that the meeting had occurred and had jeopardized this very critical investigation. So we're really seeing a circumstance where the FBI, the Lynch Department of Justice, was engaged in a cover-up of their activities. All at the same time, they were determining the outcome of the Hillary Clinton investigation before actually doing it.
All right, Congressman Gaetz, thanks for that update.
The President's former National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, pleading guilty today to one count of lying to the FBI and agreeing to cooperate with Special Counsel Robert Mueller, putting out a statement today. It's been extraordinarily painful to endure these many months of false accusations of treason and other outrageous acts. Such false accusations are contrary to everything I've ever done and stood for. But I recognize that the actions I acknowledged in court today were wrong, and through my faith in God, I'm working to set things right. My guilty plea and agreement to cooperate with the Special Counsel's office reflect a decision I made in the best interest of my family and of our country. I accept full responsibility for my actions. Ty Cobb, the president's lawyer, puts out a statement today. Today, Michael Flynn, a former national security advisor at the White House for 25 days during the Trump administration and a former Obama administration official, entered a guilty plea to a single count of making a false statement to the FBI. The false statements involved mirror the false statements to the White House officials, which resulted in his resignation in February of this year. Nothing about the guilty plea or the charge implicates anyone other than Mr. Flynn. With that, we'll bring in our panel from Washington. Jonathan Swan, national political correspondent and reporter for Axios. Matthew Continetti, editor-in-chief of the Washington Free Beacon. And from the AP's D.C. bureau, Julie Pace, Washington bureau chief for the Associated Press. Jonathan, your thoughts on these developments today?
Well, they're telling in several ways. One is that by all accounts, Mueller has treated Flynn fairly gently. So the question, of course, is what deal has been done, what's the nature of the cooperation, and what does he believe that he can get in return for the information. I can tell you from conversations with people inside the White House, the level of concern about this is of a completely different character than we saw with the indictments of Manafort and Gates. There was I guess, an expectation about Manafort and Gates, but there's an uncertainty about Flynn. As one source close to Trump said to me, this is a desperate man financially and in terms of his personal situation, and they don't know who he's going to unload on. His lawyers have stopped cooperating with the president, so there is genuine anxiety that I was not registering with the Manafort and Gates indictments.
Julie, the court filing suggests that what they're talking about here is after Donald Trump wins the presidency, and they're in transition. You asked a question that has been played again and again, and we'll play it here, about the connections to the Russians during the campaign.
Can you say whether you are aware that anyone who advised your campaign had contacts with Russia during the course of the election?
Well, I told you, General Flynn obviously was dealing, so that's one person, but he was dealing as he should have been.
During the election?
No, nobody that I know of.
So you're not aware of any contacts during the course of the election?
How many times do I have to answer this question?
Can you just say
Russia
yes or no
is
on
a
it?
ruse. Yeah, I know you have to get up and ask a question so important. Russia is a ruse. I have nothing to do with Russia. Haven't made a phone call to Russia in years.
So I think that that's an important distinction right now that we make, what we know just from the filings. Right, Julie?
Absolutely. I think that what is notable about the filing is that we're actually talking about a period of time during the transition and during the opening weeks of the Trump administration, not during the election. And much of the Mueller investigation has been focused on what happened during the election, the potential that there was coordination by the Russians with the Trump campaign to try to help Trump actually win. But what we've seen happen with the Mueller investigation is that it has tentacles everywhere. And part of the reason, as Jonathan put it, that there is so much uncertainty about Mike Flynn is that he fills all three buckets here. He was involved with Trump during the election, he was involved during the transition, and he was involved, at least for 25 days, during the actual administration. And so he has seen quite a bit involving quite a number of different people. And what we have seen today is that while there is no proof yet that Donald Trump was aware of some of these conversations and the details of them that he was having with the Russian ambassador, that other people were having with Russian officials, other people in his orbit during the transition were. And then that is a significant development.
Matthew.
The irony of all this, Brett, is that it was James Comey, according to some of the reporting, who informed Congress that the FBI did not feel it had enough to charge Flynn when the FBI was in charge of the investigation. And it was Donald Trump's decision to fire Comey that ended up launching this special counsel investigation, which has now filed this plea agreement, made this plea agreement with Flynn. And as part of, probably we're in the second act of a three-act play, one that probably will end up in the White House.
All right, as you mentioned, the Capitol Hill reaction to all this starts with Trey Gowdy, who mentions that Comey testimony. Take a listen.
Obviously, by pleading, he's admitted the falsity of it, the materiality of it, and the intent to deceive. That's different from what Director Comey told us.
I don't see this going any further. I've seen no evidence at all indicating that there's any connection between General Flynn and the president, anything involving Russian collusion.
We've got a number of major figures like Donald Trump Jr., and I want to bring back Jared Kushner. How many more figures have to be brought to justice because of their ties with Russia before we end up connecting all these dots?
Jonathan, quickly, I want to turn to taxes, but there was some talk that this could be wrapped up soon. It just doesn't feel like that tonight.
There was no basis for this. I mean, Ty Cobb was just asserting this internally, and frankly, it was part of he's the lawyer, one of the lawyers on the president's defending the president. His argument internally was the strategy has to be open kimono, we've got nothing to hide, tell them everything, and we'll wrap this up before, it's supposed to be before Thanksgiving, then it shifted before the end of the year. There's no sign that this is wrapping up before the end of the year. Just the very nature of what we saw today with Flynn and the gentleness of it suggests that there is a cooperation going on, and we don't know where this is heading next. But I would be stunned if this is wrapped up by Christmas.
All right, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell expected on the Senate floor sometime, not going to happen within this hour, probably Martha's hour. Take a listen to some of the battle on the Senate floor over tax reform.
Tax reform, tax relief for low and middle income families like we provide in this bill, and the pro-growth policies through the reforms in this bill are too important to allow a minority to kill it by filibuster.
It is astonishing just how far my Republican colleagues are willing to run from the truth in order to jam this terrible tax bill through Congress.
And I would love for us to take the time to sit down and work on this and see. You'd be surprised. I think you'd be surprised. I think not only could we get to 60, we could get above 60.
They're going to get it together, Julie?
Well, I don't know if they're going to get 60, but I think they're going to start to get it together today. They've been working really hard behind the scenes. It's been a bit of a struggle for Republicans to get the votes that they needed to get their version of the bill through. It finally looks like they have gotten them. Bob Corker is the only hard no vote that we have here. So it looks like this will be a big victory for Republicans and for the president.
And then it heads to conference. We'll see where that goes. All right, I need a super lightning. Winners and losers. Matthew, Julie, Jonathan. Winner first, then loser. Here we go.
My winner is Mike Pompeo, who's being talked about to replace Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State. He's loved not only in the White House, but also at the State Department. My loser is Al Franken, who I think has been mishandling these accusations of sexual misconduct, mounting calls for his resignation, and now he has a new enemy with John Conyers, who's facing similar misconduct on the House side.
Sorry.
My winner is Tom Cotton, who, whether he replaces Pompeo at the CIA or not, continues to establish himself as a rising force in Republican foreign policy circles. And my loser is Joe Barton. I would tell you to Google why he's my loser, but I might actually advise against that.
All right, lightning.
Julie, why would you do that? Don't Google image it. Just don't do that. My winner is the pro-Israel community. We reported today on Axios that Donald Trump next Wednesday will recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. That's a huge deal and will have ramifications for the peace process that they're undertaking. And my loser is Matt Lauer. The creepiest device ever used in any of these sexual harassment cases, a button under his desk to lock the door. Truly creepy.
What a week. Panel, thank you from Washington.